In this video, today we're going to look at a game between Tani and Djurabek. In this game, it is in a tournament called Fall NYC GMB 2022, and it's a 10-player round-robin tournament. Tani is white in this position, in this game, and the Djurabek is black. So starting off, Tani plays e4, the Djurabek plays c6, the Caro-Kann. Now the Caro-Kann, it's a pretty good opening for positional players, and the Djurabek is more of one of the positional players, so he believes that this should be the opening in order to play against Tani. In response of the exchange of e takes d5 and c takes d5, Tani plays bishop d3, knight f6, c3, bishop g4, queen b3, queen c7, knight e2. Now after this, black exchanges the bishop for the knight, and then knight c6 was made. Castling for king safety, e6 in order to develop his bishop to d6, and then bishop e3. Bishop d6 was played after. Now the threat of bishop d6 is to attack this h2 pawn, and there's only one real way to defend it while having a solid pawn structure against the queen and the dark squared bishop. That move is g3, since it follows a solid formation against the bishop to prevent any kind of counterplay, except for one move, which is h5, which threatens on playing h4 to attack this pawn and then open up the rook. Queen d1 was a mistake because of the fact that he moved queen b3 before and then queen d1, making white, Tani, lose two moves. h4 was played, continuing the plan of attacking the king side. King g2 in order to solidify our king side, and we can move our rook here just in case if we exchange pawns in the g file and the rook opens up. Knight e4. Now there's a lot of different threats black has right now. The main tension is between the g file pawn here, and if he exchanges the g file pawn using this pawn, then the rook will open up. This queen and bishop is attacking this pawn as well as the knight, and the knight is at a good square. At this point, things are not looking good for white, so white plays knight d2. Knight d2 makes sure that wants to trade with the knight in the center, because the knight in the center is way too strong, and this knight was doing nothing. So Tani developed his piece in order to get rid of this knight. H takes g3, H takes g3, and then bishop takes g3. The thing is that if white plays f takes g3, then it's a simple mate. So taking on g3 is not an option. And the best way to counterplay is rook h1, because if you take the knight, then we simply have rook h2 check. So rook h1, trying to contest this rook for the open h file, which is a good idea in order to stop an advantage for black. After exchanging the rooks, the bishop moves back to save the bishop because the taking the bishop was not a threat anymore for white, so black moves back the bishop. Tani exchanges the knight just as he plans to in the beginning. After exchanging the knight, Queen H8 was played. Now, if King E7 or King D7 was played, then this rook is, well, free. So, the only way to defend against this is Bishop F8. D5 was played here. Well, the main purpose of this is so that he can open up this beautiful center in order to put more pressure on the bishop. So after exchanging, or more likely taking, the pawn, Bishop C5 was played. Of course, that's the plan, in order to put pressure on this bishop right here. Castling on the queen side, for king safety, of course. Tani took the bishop, and then F5. Queen G8, King B8, Rook H1, F4. Now, Tani pushed the pawn on F3 in order to prevent the fork on the king and the bishop, so he pushed F3, and then D4. In this position, white is winning because of the fact that white is up around the bishop up in this position. So as soon as he took this pawn, it was drawish a bit, or winning. Knight D4, Rook H8, he takes F3, and then after moving King F2, it's drawish in this position. So there's a move here in order to keep the advantage. Can you spot that move? If you thought bishop takes F3, great job. Knight takes F3, bishop C5. Now, if rook takes G8, then we simply have rook takes G8, queen C8, and then it's just a mate in 2 afterwards. If knight H4 check, then we could just move our king to safety with king F1. King C8, queen E6 check, and at this point, moving the king back wouldn't be such a great option as you might think, because moving the king back, that would result in this. Now, cannot take the bishop, it's practically pinned, and this is bad for black. So, continuing with the game, King C8 was played. Bishop D3, because you don't want to lose a piece. You don't want to lose a piece, of course. Now, Queen E5. Now, the point of this is to try to attack the king, try to put more pressure. But black forgot that King C4 was available. Now, for King C4, Queen C4, Knight C6, and then Bishop takes G7. This is an interesting move because it attacks the queen, right? It attacks the queen. If takes, we check it. It cannot move back, because if it moves back, we take, and if it takes, then we could have a simple checkmate right there. It's beautiful. So, another option for black is king c7, in which case, happened in the game, rook h7. Now, this is what happened in the game. It was a good pin in order to gain the queen, and the black played, the Djurabek played rook d2 check. The reason why rook d2 check was in order to try to attack this pawn, gain as much compensation as possible, because he believed that he could still win the game. We moved away the king, took the rook. Now it's a queen for a rook in this exchange, and then black took a pawn, white took a pawn, and at this point it's more of 2 pawns and the rook versus a queen. For the rest of the game, Tani took one of the pawn, he pushed the pawn, continued to attack the rook and the knight because he wanted to put more pressure on the opponent, the Djurabek. King f2, activating the king, rook e7, king e2, king d6, king d2, king c7, king c3, rook e5, queen f4, king b6, queen f2. Now, this is the part where this rook and the king is pinned. After this check, white moved away with king b3, and now black cannot move the rook anymore because it is pinned. He cannot move away his king in order to be unpinned because his rook would be hanging, and if he moved here in order to be unpinned, then we could simply check. This is another way to check the opponent. Now, he had to move back in order to defend the rook, and it was the only sane move because if rook here, then that would just be unfortunate checkmate. There is a lot more moves during the game. Took the bishop because if takes, queen takes the rook, and that wouldn't be a fair exchange. At this part of the game, the Djurabek resigned against Tani, and it was a pretty solid game between them. I believe that, if we go back to the position, this part, the Djurabek was winning against Tani. It's just that at one point, all of the tension was just given away. Instead, what should have been played was castling at the queen side. We can move our rook in g8, rook d g8, and then push this pawn, put more pressure, and then we can start attacking. Because if we bring our king to safety first, and then we can bring our other rook into the game, all of the pieces, but not all of the pieces, more like all of the pieces except for this knight, is going to be attacking the king side and would give black a very good winning chance. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys will subscribe to our channel, and see us next time. Goodbye.